the 5 most terrifying supernatural cases ever recorded. There's a thin line between the things we can explain and the things we keep recording anyway, even when we don't understand them. Across film reels, court documents, infrared photos, and 42 hours of audio tape, ordinary people swore they captured something that shouldn't exist. Some of it was debunked, some of it never was. 5 cases, 5 real recordings, footage, photos, audio, and documents you can go find yourself. And one question that's going to follow you to the end: was it real? I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to show you what got left behind, and let you decide. The rule is simple. No, I heard from a friend. Every case here left a physical trace, a document, a photograph, a recording, or footage that survived and can still be examined today. We're counting down from number 5 to number 1, and I'll tell you up front, the number 1 case ended with a death, a criminal trial, and 43 tapes that no one has ever fully explained. Take a breath. Let's begin. Case 5, the Patterson-Gimlin film, Bigfoot. October 20th, 1967. 2 men on horseback ride through the Six Rivers National Forest in Northern California. Roger Patterson, a former rodeo rider chasing the Bigfoot legend, and his friend Bob Gimlin, by his own description, a skeptic who came along for the ride. They reach a bend at Bluff Creek. The horses spook. And across the sandbar, they say, something stands up. Patterson grabs his 16mm camera and runs. What he shoots is shaky, less than a minute long, about 950 frames, of a tall, dark, upright figure walking away across the clearing. And then comes the moment that turned folklore into a worldwide obsession. Frame 352. The creature turns its head and looks back, straight into the camera. That single image of a massive, muscular figure glancing over its shoulder is one of the most analyzed frames in the history of film. Believers point out things that are hard to dismiss. The figure's arms are longer than a human's. Its walk, knees bent, a smooth, rolling gait, is unlike a person trying to fake an ape. Anthropologists who started as skeptics came away convinced it was real. Some special effects artists have said a suit that good would be hard to build even now, let alone in 1967. And the skeptics? In 2004, a man named Bob Hieronymus came forward and said it was him, that he wore a gorilla costume for Patterson. A costume maker claimed he built it. The problem? No suit was ever produced. No definitive proof of a zipper, a seam, a mask. Roger Patterson swore it was real until the day he died in 1972. Bob Gimlin still says the same thing today, decades later. 50+ years of frame-by-frame analysis. And the most famous monster movie ever shot is still sitting exactly where it started, between a hoax and the impossible. Case 4, the Travis Walton abduction. November 5th, 1975. A 7-man logging crew is driving home through the Arizona pines near the town of Snowflake. They're behind schedule on a U.S. Forest Service contract. Tired, tense. Then the woods light up. The crew says they saw a bright, flattened disc hovering silently above a clearing. 22-year-old Travis Walton jumps out of the truck and walks toward it, against his crewmates yelling at him to stop. They say a beam of light hit him, lifted him off the ground, threw him backward. The driver panics and floors it. When the crew gets the nerve to come back minutes later, Travis Walton is gone. What follows is one of the largest manhunts in Arizona history. Helicopters, tracking dogs, search parties, nothing. And here's where it turns dark. With no body and a story about a UFO, the sheriff starts to suspect the crew killed Travis and made the whole thing up. So he brings in a polygraph examiner. This isn't a friendly test, it's a murder investigation. The crew takes the test, and they pass. Their accounts match: a craft, a beam, Travis down, then gone. 5 days later, gone since November 5th, Travis Walton turns up near Heber, Arizona, in the early hours of November 11th. Dehydrated, disoriented, terrified. He describes waking up on a table in a sterile room. Small, pale, hairless beings with huge dark eyes. Medical-style procedures. And then, nothing, until he came to on a cold highway. Skeptics have a tidy theory. The crew was behind on a contract and facing penalties, so they faked an abduction to get out of it. The famous UFO debunker Philip Klass argued exactly that, and questioned how reliable a polygraph really is. But there are loose ends. The crew has never recanted, in 50 years. Travis has never cashed in and walked away. And one of the most damning details cuts both ways. the very first polygraph in the case, quietly set aside for years, reportedly didn't clear Travis at all. A scam to dodge a fine, or 7 men who saw something they can't take back? Case 3. The Enfield poltergeist. Now we cross the Atlantic, to a case so heavily documented it became the basis for The Conjuring 2. North London, 1977. A council house. A single mother, Peggy Hodgson, raising 4 kids with no money, no fame, and no reason to invent anything. One August night, a heavy dresser slides across the bedroom floor on its own. Knocks start answering from inside the walls, in patterns, like something is trying to talk. Objects fly, and the children, especially 11-year-old Janet, say they're being thrown out of their beds. Here's what makes Enfield different from a campfire story. It wasn't just the family. Neighbors saw it, journalists saw it, and police officers on duty saw it. One responding constable signed a statement saying she watched a heavy armchair slide across the floor, with no one near it. The Society for Psychical Research, a serious British organization founded in 1882, sends 2 investigators, Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. They practically move in, for 18 months, and they record everything. More than 200 hours of audio, hundreds of photos, over 2,000 logged incidents. And then comes the part nobody forgets. The voice. Through Janet, an 11-year-old girl, comes a deep, hoarse, old man's voice. For hours, it claims to be a dead man named Bill who lived in the house, and it answers questions. Listen to the tapes today, and you get the same chill the investigators did. A child shouldn't be able to hold that. For hours. For months. The skeptics have real ammunition. Janet and her sister admitted faking some of it, to see if the investigators would catch us, they said. The levitation photos? Could be a kid jumping off the bed at the exact moment the flash fired. The voice? Children can produce strange sounds using the false vocal folds. All true, all fair. But then the question flips. How do 2 girls fool experienced investigators, journalists, and police officers for 18 months under constant press attention and never get caught at the core of it? Janet, now an adult, still says the heart of it was real. The tapes still exist. The photos are still public. The house is still standing. No proof it was real. No proof it was fake. Just the recordings and your doubt. Case 2. The Demon House of Gary. This one isn't from a black and white photo or a crackling tape. It's recent. It's American. And the reason it's so disturbing is that it's written down in police reports and state child welfare files. November 2011. Latoya Ammons, a single mother, moves into a rental house in Gary, Indiana, with her mother and her 3 kids. Days later, they say, swarms of large black flies cover the porch, in December, in the cold, and keep coming back no matter how many they kill. Then footsteps in the basement, doors creaking open on their own, a shadow figure pacing the living room. Then, they say, it gets to the children, eyes bulging, voices dropping, strange smiles. The kids, ages 7, 9, and 12, start speaking to people who aren't there. The mother says she saw her 12-year-old daughter levitate above the bed. A skeptic would stop right there. A stressed family, mental illness, kids acting out, and someone did call it in. Child Services opened a case. The most likely story was neglect, except for what happened next, in front of the wrong witnesses. During an evaluation, medical staff and a Department of Child Services case manager reported watching the youngest boy get lifted and thrown against a wall, with no one touching him. And the caseworker wrote, in an official state report, that she watched a 9-year-old boy walk backward up a wall and flip over his grandmother from near the ceiling. The nurse and the caseworker were so frightened they ran out of the room. Police officers who walked through the house later reported their own problems. Radio malfunctions, a strange voice caught on a recorder, an oily substance dripping from the blinds. A priest, Father Michael Maginot, performed exorcisms on Latoya Ammons with police present, and a Gary police captain, A trained investigator who started out a hard skeptic said, on the record, that he came to believe it. The skeptic's case is strong, and you should hear it. Child Services recommended the home be tested for carbon monoxide poisoning, which can cause hallucinations. One of LaToya's own relatives publicly called the whole thing a story. There was money to be made. A movie, a documentary, attention. But that one detail won't go away. A professional caseworker, whose entire job is to find ordinary explanations and protect kids from them, wrote in a government file that she watched a child walk up a wall. People lie. Documents can be wrong. But why would she write that down? Case 1. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. You may know the movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. What you may not know is that the courtroom drama on screen was based on a real young woman, a real exorcism, and 43 real audio tapes. Her name was Anneliese Michel, a devout Catholic girl from Bavaria. At 16, she had her first violent seizure. Doctors diagnosed temporal lobe epilepsy. The medication didn't help. The visions got worse. Distorted faces. Voices she said were demons. A revulsion to crucifixes and holy water. By her early 20s, Anneliese and her family had stopped believing this was medical. They believed she was possessed. The church eventually approved an exorcism. 2 priests, Arnold Renz and Ernst Alt, began. And over roughly 10 months, from late 1975 into the summer of 1976, they held an astonishing 67 sessions. Many lasted 4 hours. And they pressed record. What's on those tapes is hard to listen to. Anneliese, growling, screaming in voices that don't sound like a young woman, speaking as different entities that argued with each other for control of her body. She named them Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Nero, and Adolf Hitler, speaking in a Bavarian accent.
Ich verbrech das so, dass ich in dem Wald rein bin. Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. Die saublöde Weib. Für uns gibt's kein Zurück. Nee.
The family and the priests believed the fasting and prayer were working, so they let her stop eating, convinced it would drive the demons out. It killed her. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel died of malnutrition and dehydration. She weighed 68 pounds. One of her last recorded sentences, through tears, was to her mother, "I'm afraid." And here is where the question becomes genuinely uncomfortable, because the most likely explanation isn't supernatural. It's medical and human, and it's a tragedy. Anneliese had documented epilepsy and severe psychiatric illness. The Exorcist had been released in Germany 2 years earlier, and skeptics note her demon voice sounds strikingly like the film. In court, doctors testified that what she needed was medicine and food, not ritual. The verdict agreed. Her parents and both priests were convicted of negligent homicide. So maybe the tapes aren't the sound of a demon. Maybe they're the sound of a sick young woman, failed by everyone who loved her. But that's exactly what makes this the #1 case. It's the only one where the recordings are undisputed. They're real. You can hear them. And the horror isn't a maybe. Something terrible did happen in that room. The only question left is what? A girl losing a battle with her own brain? Or a girl losing a battle with something that named itself Lucifer?
Der ich, der Judas und der Nero, der Kain und der Hitler. 5 Stimmen.
Das ist der 6.
Oh, den haben wir gelogen.
Den habt ihr natürlich.
5 cases, 3 countries, half a century. A piece of film no one has cracked in over 50 years. 7 men who passed lie detector tests and never took it back. A child's voice on tape that shouldn't exist. A caseworker who wrote down what she saw on a wall. And 43 tapes from a room where a girl died. Every one of them has a rational answer waiting in the wings. A man in a suit. A scam to dodge a fine. A kid faking it. Carbon monoxide. Epilepsy. And still, not one of them is closed. Not one was ever fully solved. Maybe there's nothing out there but the things we can measure. Or maybe we keep pointing cameras and microphones into the dark precisely because, somewhere deep down, we already suspect something might be looking back. I showed you the recordings. The question is yours. Was it real?